is a religious scholar at the Rida Islamic Center of Milton Keynes and a student of the Islamic Studies at Al-Mahdi Institute in Birmingham. And that's where he obtained a bachelor's degree in Islamic Studies in 2019. And he has served after the Faith Community of Cambridge between 2015 and 2022, and the Muslim Community of Keys since 2023. Alhamdulillah. So his activities involve community leadership, Islamic education to the youth, and lecturing at different Islamic centers. And he holds a bachelor's degree as well in electrical and computer engineering from the American University in Beirut, and a master's from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. So please, everybody, if you can, welcome to the house of
Thank you very much for the kind welcome. Thank you all for being with us here, taking the time, taking from your own time. Maybe you will be investing normally in these times, but you chose to join. Really for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, that's what we believe. Obviously, the title of the workshop or the event is being Muslim in a classroom. Being Muslim. When we say Muslim, when we identify ourselves as Muslim, it means we devote ourselves to a certain God-centric life. It means we align our worldview with the worldview of Islam. It means we see the world according to what our faith taught us, which we believe makes sense, which we believe it really explains the world. And we live a life that is devoted to this faith. We all are devoted to Islam. And that worldview of Islam tells us that actually all of us here, everyone, all the creation, are on a journey towards God. We start from a starting point in our life, in this world at least, and we are on a journey towards Allah, and we're all heading there, whether we like it or not. We're heading towards God. But obviously, we try to meet God on good terms with Him, not on bad terms. We all are going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what Allah tells us in the Quran when He quotes those who are patient. He says, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ, those who, when they are afflicted with certain tribulation or affliction or trial or difficulty or pain and so on, what do? They remember, they say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They say, we belong to God. This is where we started from, and we are returning to Him. So it really explains basically what we are doing, what our role here is, or what our status, let me say, is, that we're heading to God. And so it makes sense that everything that we do in this life, everything that we do actually helps us on that journey, because we know we're heading to a certain destination. We know that our time here is limited. And we know that what is out there, what is waiting for us, is eternal. So it makes a lot of sense that we actually spend our time here doing the things that would help us on that journey, that would help us in our what we call afterlife. It makes a lot of sense. And so we should be doing that in our spiritual activities, in our intellectual activity, even when we rest, even when we eat, when we drink, when we live our normal lives, when we seek knowledge. We need to make sure that we do all these in such a way that our time wouldn't be counted as it was a lost time. It was in vain. And so we need to align everything that we do towards that goal or towards that dimension or destination, even the knowledge that we gain. So we need to make sure that when we sit in a classroom, right, when we are learning, we are gaining the knowledge that would actually help us on that path, and that is beneficial. So we need to make sure we gain beneficial knowledge. What do I mean by beneficial knowledge? It means that we need to make sure we gain the knowledge that would feed our faith, that would feed our iman, and the knowledge that would take us closer to the truth, what is really true about this world. And Allah tells us in the Quran, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْحَقِّ. And that is so that Allah is the truth. So the knowledge that we should be seeking should be taking us to Allah. Not any knowledge. It should be linked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obviously now you may say, and everyone online, Assalamu alaikum, by the way. So this is the time where you would tell me now, okay, Rida, listen, we're not studying Hawda here, right? We're not in a religious seminar. So what are you talking about? We're studying law, we're studying economics, politics, right? What are you talking about? What do you mean, gain the knowledge in a classroom that would take you closer to God? And with this, I'll start my 5 recommendations for myself, obviously, and for yourselves. As students, as learners in this life, we will never stop learning. We'll never stop learning. Maybe in a classroom it's more formal, but learning is a journey now, and it should be actually a defining characteristic in the life that we lead. Inshallah, till we give the last breath. So I'll mention, inshallah, 5 recommendations. The first 2, I'll talk about them now, and then we'll take a break, inshallah. Taking a break to discuss. And then I'll mention 2, then we'll take a break to discuss, and then I'll mention the final one, inshallah, and we'll wrap up. So the first one is that, yes, you're studying different fields of study in classrooms. You may not be necessarily in a room where you are studying an explicit topic about God, about faith, about deen, about afterlife. Agreed, right. So what I would recommend is that for us, as people of faith, as we said, we're Muslim, right? Muslim, it means this identity that says, hey, I'm a Muslim, I'm a person of faith. And I'm a person of deen. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali salamullahi alayhi tells us that the first step in deen, the first step, أول الدين معرفته. The first step in faith and religiosity is to recognize God. The first step is to recognize. And so, once we know and recognize God, once we recognize God in our life, actually, we will love Him so much. Once we recognize, the beautiful Allah, once we recognize the majestic Allah, once we recognize the loving God, the merciful God. Why am I saying recognize? Because He's there actually, everywhere. He's within us. But the problem is that we don't recognize. We're heedless. Sometimes it's like we're asleep. I may have something next to me here. It's very close to me. But I'm just heedless of it. But it is there. So recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recognition of the beauty of God, recognition of what God has bestowed on us, recognition of the presence of God everywhere and so on. This will make us so yearning for Him. It would make our hearts actually not settle until we get closer and closer to Him. We've heard Amir al-Mu'mineen in a dua would say, فَهَبْنِي يَا إِلَهِي وَسَيِّدِي وَمَوْلَاي صَبَرْتُ عَلَىٰ عَذَابِكَ. Oh Allah, assume that I was able to handle and tolerate your punishment and torture. It's terrible. Assume I'm able to handle all that. How can I then handle فَكَيْفَ أَصْبِرُ عَلَىٰ فِرَاقِكَ? How can I handle separation from you? Because separation from you, oh Allah, Imam is saying, separation from you is far more painful than that. وَهَبْنِي صَبَرْتُ عَلَىٰ حَرِّ نَارِكَ. And assume I was able to handle the fire, the flame of your fire, which is tough, which is terrible. How can I handle that I don't look at your majesty? How can I handle that I don't connect with you? How can I handle that I stay far from you? This is where recognition of Allah is important. Because Allah is perfect and we love perfection. We love greatness. When we realize that Allah is the greatest, that Allah is Akbar, Allahu Akbar. When we realize this, we actually start yearning for Allah, longing for Him. We start looking for any way to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obviously, the question here is, okay, how can I recognize God? Like, how can I really recognize? I want to do this. How? And Allah tells us there's paths. One path, as He says in the Quran, He will say, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. We will certainly show them our signs in the horizons and in their own selves until they realize it is the truth. Allah says, you want to find me? I left traces of me everywhere around you. The horizons, just look around you. Look at the laws of the world. Look at the world around you, actually. This world, which we are studying in the classrooms. So in a classroom, where you may be studying physics or mathematics or biology or any empirical science, you may choose to study it as a dry science, which would just explain this universe, how it works. Brilliant, no problem. But when you actually recognize that this is the creation of God, this is the trace that would actually take me to God, with this yearning that I have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, studying or being in the classroom, studying this dry biology or mathematics or physics or empirical science, it stops being dry anymore. It is actually your way, ascension to Allah. You're recognizing Allah from the laws He created in this world. The same way, when you study humanities or human sciences, the same thing. You could have the attitude of, well, I want to study these sciences so that I'm able to understand how to operate a world where there are people and how to manage people morally. How can I reach a world where the politics that is governing is a moral politics? How can I reach a clean politics? A clean set of economical, let's say, principles that are governing the world? Instead of what we see today, for example, of the system. How can I actually learn so that I am able to understand how man can be a Khalifa of Allah on earth? How human beings can be really representatives, a manifestation of God on earth. So I have to study these sciences. Yes, I have to study politics. I have to study law. I have to study economics. I have to study all these fields. Then you arrive in the classroom, you may be studying the exact same thing like the person next to you who's non-Muslim, who doesn't have this worldview, but you're in two different worlds. You're in two different places or universes, actually. Why? Because you have a certain worldview that is centered around God. And in your quest to knowledge, you actually seek that knowledge, even though it's not necessarily strictly religious knowledge. It is actually knowledge that takes you closer to God because it allows you to understand these traces of God. And so it allows you also to live a life that is in line with the godly will. I actually was reading a book, maybe you've come across it, by Sheikh. It's called Man and Universe. It's really, really one of the great books, actually. And it's very recommended for uni students. So he would talk about religious faith, why faith is important, and how faith is important, and how it's beneficial. He would say this, and I quote, he would say religious faith transforms a cold, desiccated, mechanical and material universe into one living, intelligent, conscious, one living, intelligent and conscious universe. Religious faith transforms man's conception of the universe and creation. It really transforms. So your view of the world is different from the view of the person next to you. And so this way you become a seeker of knowledge. There are so many narrations and traditions that praise those people who seek knowledge. I'll mention a few just to motivate ourselves, inshallah. What do I mean? When you have this attitude, whether you're studying strictly religious sciences, or whether you're studying material sciences, empirical sciences, human sciences, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of God, then you're a seeker of knowledge. The Holy Messenger of God, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, said in a narration, Man talab al-ilm, فَهُوَ كَالصَّائِمِ نَهَارَهُ الْقَائِمِ لَيْلَهُ. Oh, I'm grabbing this one. Inshallah, I'm great, I'll drink. Whoever seeks knowledge is like the one who fasts during the day and stands in prayer at night. Obviously, comparing this to someone who's not seeking knowledge. To someone who's seeking knowledge, spending maybe less or short time or a short part of their time or their day, they get this reward. And a chapter of knowledge that a person learns is better for him or her than if he or she possessed Mount Abu Qubais, if that's a certain mountain in Mecca or Medina, I'm not sure now, in gold, spent in the way of God. Imagine you have that much gold spending in the way of Allah, charity, helping people and so on. It's a great act. It's a great act. This is the reward of someone who's seeking knowledge. Obviously, underlying knowledge. Because knowledge is the thing that actually benefits you, remember, on this journey in your life. Not anything is called knowledge. I go and discuss secrets of people. Is that knowledge? That's information. How does that benefit me on this journey to God? If I go and study, for example, recipes from different cuisines. Okay, nice. Maybe, inshallah, you cook something for a person and you make them happy. That's good. How is this going to take you to God in itself? Another narration from the Holy Messenger of God. مَنْ غَدَى فِي طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ أَضَلَّتْ عَلَيْهِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. Whoever sets out in the morning to seek knowledge, the angels would shed her, meaning that they would be in the protection of God. It's a privilege, actually, to be someone who's seeking knowledge.
How do we distinguish from seeking knowledge in the way of Allah and something that's not? So if you mentioned learning about different cuisines, but again, how do you distinguish between the two? It's in the way of Allah and stuff.
Tell me why. Tell me why your intention then. Tell me the intention of why you're doing this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should that not tell you whether you're doing it for the sake of God or not?
Because I can be like, okay, well, I'm learning about all these different cuisines and different food and being able to go through.
Brilliant. There you go. You found that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. Because there could be someone who's doing this, but for the sake of, I want to be happy. I want to sleep well at night. I. They think, some people think actually they're doing well for the humanity, and it's good, inshallah they are. But it's not really ascending them to God, because all it's doing is probably making their own I as God. I'm paying charity because I want to sleep well at night. I'm actually sending money, let's say, to people who are suffering in Palestine or in Lebanon. Why? Because I can't stand seeing all this on my mobile phone and then sleep at night. So I want to sleep well, and so I go and help. Good, humanitarian, amazing. But in the realm of spirituality, is it for God or is it not? If it is not for God, you have to be careful. Anything applies. Anything applies. Obviously, there are levels. There are levels. One who learns a certain science that actually guides people, transforms people, inspires people, motivates people, is at a level. And one who studies or, for example, learns recipes so that he can draw a smile on the faces of people is beautiful. For the sake of God, huh? But it's at a different level. So it's levels. Okay? It's not black and white. It's not yes or no, 0 or 1. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so
We can talk, inshallah, discussion. By the way, people online, so because, feel free to interrupt. I know that I will not be able to see, but maybe you tell me if anyone used any of the tools raising a virtual hand. So please feel free to interrupt. Inshallah, we can discuss it during the discussion time. Amir al-Mu'mineen would say also about the seeker of knowledge, that every angel seeks forgiveness for the seeker of knowledge, and those in the heavens and the earth pray for them. Okay? It means that you are on the side of God, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the whole world subservient to you, helping you, supporting you at your service. Why? Because you're seeking knowledge for the sake of God. So this is the first recommendation. Recognize God in the fields that you're studying. Recognize Allah in the fields that you are studying. Otherwise, I'm very happy to share the notes after I finish, so don't feel you're missing out, inshallah. I'll share them with my brothers and sisters. The second thing, I'll make it short, is that still, although we are able to recognize God through the horizons, through the sciences, but still do not disregard the Islamic studies, the specific religious studies. Still make sure you seek those. You know, because another way of recognizing God, so one we said is the traces in creation. Another way is actually his speech, what he said, the revelation, studying God himself. Imam al-Sadiq says in a narration, تَجَلَّ اللَّهُ فِي كِتَابِهِ وَلِخَلْقِهِ فِي كِتَابِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. God manifested to his creation through his book, but people don't see. People don't see. Do we really see God in the Quran that we try to recite every day, inshallah, at least a page? Do we see God? Do you recognize God there? We need to actually engage with this book spiritually, but also we need to study it. We need to study the sciences around it. If our command of Arabic is not very good, we need to improve it, right? Because translation of the Quran is different from the Quran itself. Any translation of any text is different from the text itself. Someone asked the Messenger of God about the best of deeds. What is the best deed? The Holy Messenger of God answered. He said, العلم بالله والفقه في دينه. Knowledge about God and a deep understanding of his religion. This is what? The best of deeds. The best thing you could do. Why? Because it is really the flashlight that would lighten up your path in the darkness. If you don't have this knowledge that would actually guide you on the right path, you go left and right. And so this is really, really key. Yes.
Is it so much about seeking knowledge, or is it applying it?
Come again?
Is it so much of seeking knowledge, or is it about applying it?
They're interconnected.
Because you can seek knowledge, you can be the brightest person. And again, like it's about applying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our traditions also teach us that it's not just about learning and storing.
Yeah.
So learning, basically, the true learning is the one that manifests. So this is really, so you start here defining what learning is. Is it the storage of data? Because, I mean, my laptop is learning then, right? Okay. Is that really what is meant? No, it is really applied. It is really applied. Ahsan. Good point. And see, this is what the Messenger of God is saying. Listen, because I think this answers you. And the man asked, "Oh, Messenger of God, why? I mean, I'm asking you about something to do, and you tell me go and learn." Messenger of God answered, he said, knowledge benefits you even if you do little good deeds. Because you'd be doing it based on correct knowledge and appropriate knowledge. You'd be driven by the right motivations. But ignorance does not benefit you even if you do so many good deeds. Because you may be doing them in the wrong way or for the wrong purpose, for the wrong reason. You'd be going in the wrong direction. As I said, you think you're doing right, and Allah says in the Quran that the people with the worst fortune are those who think they're doing the right thing in their lives. But eventually, it turns out that they were lost. They were thinking they're doing right, but they were doing wrong. Our Imam says in the narration that the one who walks without guidance is the one who's walking on the wrong way. The furthest they walk, the fastest they walk, the faster they walk, the further they are from the goal. You think you're so motivated, you're doing it for the right reasons. But actually you're not. You're on the wrong way. And so it is very important for us to still seek Islamic science. Because some of the fields, some of the Islamic sciences actually, they need input from people like yourselves. From the studies or fields of study that you're studying. You may have seen some fuqaha, they need input from people who know economics. For example, they want to, let's say, deliver guidance about, I don't know, cryptocurrency. Okay, who is there to give this advice? Those who are actually in the field, the experts in the field. And these are yourselves. So you need to combine these two characters. The character of the person who is studying the human sciences, empirical sciences, and the character of the person who is studying the religious sciences. Okay? Okay, shall we take a break? Shall we take a break? By break, I mean actually an activity. Can everyone please, because we're a few here, can everyone maybe tell me what you're studying actually, whether in this uni or somewhere else? If you don't mind, just tell me the field of study that you're going through.
Civil engineering.
Pardon?
Civil engineering.
Civil engineering.
Financial maths.
Financial maths and stats.
Accounting and finance.
Council? Accounting and finance, sorry. Law.
Midwifery.
Pardon?
Midwifery.
Midwifery. Sorry, I missed you, brother.
He's our academic chair for today.
Okay, thank you.
But
Sorry.
I can still tell you
Absolutely, yes, I don't want to exclude you.
what I teach and what I study.
Please do, yes, because you will be involved in the conversation.
I study and teach social policy,
Amazing, okay.
and I study and teach justice.
Beautiful, okay. Thank you, that'll be helpful.
And I think it might help you for me to say, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I'm not Muslim, but my hat makes people think I'm Muslim. And I know that when people say Assalamu alaikum to me, I should say Alaikum assalam. But because I'm not Muslim, it doesn't come naturally. It comes like half an hour later. I should have said this. But
Your name, sorry.
Sunil Kumar.
Sunil Kumar. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being with us. You said midwifery, sorry, yes.
I'm studying organizational behavior.
Organization behavior.
I'm studying international social and public policy.
MashaAllah. Very nice. So we have a blend actually of I didn't think that. I'll tell you why I'm asking. Because in this part I was thinking to split into groups, but groups based on similar fields. Similar-ish. Obviously, brothers and sisters online, you will have to be a group together, regardless of what you study. I'm really sorry, because that's probably the only way it will work. Did people here observe any pattern in the fields? Let me say, I'm not sure if that's a correct classification or division. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Can we say human science, empirical science, is that a good split or not?
So human science.
So can you raise your hand if you're human sciences, or you're studying human sciences? Can you raise your hand, please, clearly, so that I can see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's perfect, I think. Okay, that's perfect. Then we'll steal some from you. So we have a whiteboard here and a whiteboard there. So obviously we're going to be split into 2 teams or 2 groups. If you're comfortable participating, if you're not comfortable, please feel free to sit here and observe. So 2 groups, and I want us to think about, all this theory that I talked about, just theory, because I really wanted to make a bit more sense to our lives, to our fields. So one is each group to answer 2 questions. One is, where can I recognize God in what I study? And you can use examples from your own fields individually. Okay, how really can I recognize God in what I study? How can I cash it? Okay, level of practice. And the second is, if answering this is difficult, let's think about the second one, which is, how can my field serve humanity, serve the Muslim community, right? The wider human community, the more specific Muslim community, and reflect the divine purpose for humanity through what I'm studying. It could be, after I graduate, I'll do this, and help someone with something, right? I want us to think about this. Does this make sense? Does this not make sense to anyone? Please do feel free to object. Online, are we good? If you're present,
Yes,
obviously.
we're good, I think.
No pressure. Okay, no pressure. So I think we'll have to probably mute ourselves, and I think you mute us as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute and then I'll turn the volume down so
Yes.
that the people online can discuss
Very good.
as well.
Okay, let's do it this way, and let's see. Let's take 20 minutes for this activity, right? Answering these 2 questions. I'm not sure.
Salam everyone. So we're gonna do the activity as well. We can do it on this whiteboard, and then we'll return to the Sayyid what he said. So the first question was, how do we see God in our work? 2, how do we see our work serving humanity and the Muslim community? I can go first, but if anyone else wants to, feel free. So of course, if you don't want to, that's completely fine as well. Yeah, I think you guys can also use the whiteboard. So if you don't want to speak, you can feel free to just type it in and just leave your name. So I'll go first, guys. So in our work or in our study, so I study something called economic history. And when a lot of people hear about economic history, they think it's just about making the most money, or thinking about how we can make the economy make the most money. But actually, if you study a lot of it, a lot of the things that better economies and make us better off can be quite simple human principles. Things like, accountability, trust, openness. You might see these things in institutions, like an open government, clear financial reporting, etc. So this kind of reflects a lot of Islamic principles as well. That's kind of an idea of how you can do it. And if you're struggling to use the whiteboard, there's like a text function on the side. It's my first time using it as well. If you guys want to speak, and I can type it, or if you just want to type it, go ahead. Guys, how's it going? I was just getting my food off the stove. Okay, wow, lots of work. So for anyone who's joined recently, we've done a little session on seeing how we can merge studying Islamic sciences and empirical sciences. Now the Sheikh's given us these questions, which the group in person is doing, but we're also doing. So one of those questions is, how do we see God in our work/study, which we just dealt with, and everyone's got lovely answers here. Very nice. Second, we've got, how do we see our work serving humanity and the Muslim community? This one's meant to be the easier one, but we might as well answer this too. So I think for me, if I'm going back to economic history, it would kind of be seeing how we can help hold a lot of these institutions or people in power to account through publicizing these theories and research. An example of that to kind of ground it more would be things like we don't have to go something like, the wealth tax. I'll kind of make this a bit smaller so everyone's can be seen. Forgive me, this is also my first time using this. So, for example, just kind of challenging open bureaucracy / dictatorships that seek to oppress, or even with the UK government, there's lots of pressure to do more, the less off. Using things like a wealth tax. Oh yeah, so the discussion's starting again in a minute. So we can wrap up there, but that's kind of the idea. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you guys want to talk, feel free, but also you can chill. A lot of nice work done there. I'm just trying to find a way to screenshot everything. If you guys want to say it, feel free to say your stuff. Otherwise, I can transmit what everyone said.
Please grab a seat.
What I do, like,
Back to your seats.
that was kind of the aim going in. I was very so we needed that to
Back in. Good. Online, can you hear me? Not hearing anything on volume. I'm not sure if our volume is up.
So now, can you guys hear us?
Excellent.
Yes, so we have whenever you're ready, we also have some
Excellent.
things we record.
Let me ask everyone. So, how did you feel that went? I'll tell you personally because we could have done this as just a monologue lecture, right? But I really want us to try to translate this to our real life. And actually think and engage and discuss. We can't do that really easily. So let me do it this way. Let me start with the group that discussed empirical sciences, and then the group that discussed the human sciences, and then go to the blend online. I'm very curious about also what you discussed. Would anyone like to speak for the group? Maybe summarize in a minute or two. Let's take 2 minutes each group, and then inshallah we move forward. Empirical sciences. Any speaker who would like to summarize what you discussed?
So we went through each of our degrees that we're studying. For civil engineering, we said it can help with building centers, mosques, understanding the laws of physics and how it shows the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also following nature's structural laws. For accounting and finance and financial maths, we spoke about understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mathematical laws that govern the world, and also handling finance for centers, community centers, and also investing, using the money that you make to invest in community projects and in charity. And also for biomedical science, we said it allows you to understand the complexities of the human body and therefore understand that Allah is the perfect creator. Also, serve the community by diagnosing, treating, and researching to benefit the health of the community.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you. Would anyone like to add to that? Anything else? That's really
Can I
brilliant.
just ask a question?
Yeah.
The point you make about using the money you make for humane good purpose. But you haven't said what is the morality of making money, right? And we know in today's world, making money out of money is the money, okay? And I think even in my reading of Islam in terms of waqf and not charging interest and so on and so forth, there are very creative ways to get around what a mortgage,
The last point that we covered.
what is mortgage and so on.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think about how interpretation can also manipulate. So for example, if the money is made out of extraction, exploitation, the lack of payment of minimum wage, but the money is then given to a good cause. This is the philanthropy behind slave owners and, Carnegie and, all that stuff, right? So I think there's a question about how wealth itself is created. And
Absolutely.
then placing that in the current neoliberal capitalist world. And everything you're taught at university, you're taught your mind is fashioned towards serving the world of work.
Absolutely. I think we will come to this at the end because we want to discuss also alternatives, right? The next couple of points we'll discuss is really spirituality and morality. So the assumption here, obviously, as I understood you, is that obviously we don't follow the ends justify the means, right? We need to select moral ways and try to find alternatives. Which I will discuss that. Very good point. So thank you. But very good that you mentioned, we notice and observe the intricacies of the world, and from that you're able to deduce something about God. And this is something that is also, it's not really for Muslims, is it? Right? It's not really for Muslims. It's any human who's able to recognize and realize the intricacies and the precision with this world, they're able to reach a conclusion about something, right? You call it God, you call it Allah, you have certain attributes for it because your revelation told you things as well. But it's not really for Muslims only. And this is where we see, as far as I understand, most of the people, they would actually recognize there is something big about this world. There's something beyond, there's something bigger. And this is where you mentioned, I think, is also referring to the argument from design, right? When you see how the world is structured, the precision, the harmony and so on. Brilliant, amazing, thank you. The group, do you have anything to share? Sorry. Anyone would like to speak for the second group, which is the human sciences? How can you recognize God in human sciences? And how can you use human sciences in the service of the will of God?
So being faithful to our disciplines, being more in the humanities, we've taken a theoretical approach to answer the question. They've taken obviously an empirical approach as a discipline. But so first we spoke of how specifically in law, and then we also dived into politics a little bit, but specifically law, when we're trying to find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that discipline, we find that there's obviously big talk about natural law theory or natural legal theory, right, as posited by Professor Aquinas, right? That obviously has many and shares many similarities with what we find within our Islamic tradition, that humans have this innate sense of morality and of goodness, right? And coming from where? Obviously, the traditional theologians like St. Thomas Aquinas and traditional thinkers of natural law will say it's from God. But the more new or neo thinkers of natural law, they'll say it's just it's something that we all have, maybe evolution or something. But we see this and that, if we're accepting that theory of natural law, then it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's something we can find, right? Is that in that law is that we all have, these certain moral characteristics about ourselves that tell us like, killing somebody unjustly is morally wrong, right?
So basic, maybe universal principles or universal values, let me say.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we also went into politics a little bit, and this is more so of how we can serve humanity and the ummah through our work. This brother here brought up some very good points. I'll try to elucidate as well as he did. He doesn't want to speak. I don't know. If you want to jump in, yeah, if you can. You did much better than me, but go for it, inshallah.
If you were to think about it from a political perspective, you can go down the route of what we understand politics to be, and then what we understand political activism to be. If you would try to define politics very briefly, you can talk about its power. It's a power struggle, constantly. It's a constant power struggle. We see it in forms of elections every 5 years. But that's a huge power struggle with thousands of people involved. Political activism we see like in a modern day is protests. That's what we think political activism to be. You go out, you protest, you uphold your constitutional right to show something. If you put that to an Islamic field, our right Islamically is believing and its existence. If we go back to like a philosophical perspective, the social contract between us and God is the Quran. We have consented to follow this religion. We're more than welcome to leave this religion. There's nothing stopping. We can easily say, I have left Islam.
That's the point I made in the beginning, right? When you say you're Muslim, you adhere to a certain worldview.
This is a voluntary religion that we adhere to. We're not forced upon to be Muslim. So political activism then is our willingness to be Muslims in a day-to-day life, in a Western world, in an Eastern world, or wherever we are. Political activism is then enacting the power of Allah. Allah is the all-powerful. There's nothing more powerful than that. Politics is power than Allah is politics. Islam is inherently a political religion. From the doctrine of, the fiqh rules we have in the Quran to upholding an Islamic government from the Quran, everything we do saying Bismillah is a form of political activism. Because we are enacting what we believe is politics, and if Allah is politics, then Salah is politics.
Amazing. Hold on to this point. I want you also to add it to the other points in the final part, inshallah.
Can I start another point to that? And I don't know, I'm asking the question. How do you explain differences within Islamic beliefs? Yeah. And I think that's an important
schools
point.
of Islamic understanding, you mean?
Yeah, but also groups. Sunni Shia, for example, I have Shia students, they talk about how they feel persecuted. And that happens in all religions, Protestant, Catholic, in Hinduism, and so on and so forth. So I'm just trying to tie it to your earlier remarks about, because I chaired the One Ummah conference last year. And this notion, and then some people were questioning that what is this one Ummah, like one community, one belief. And I think we have to deal with that, because that's the reality. The reality is there is fragmentation, there is discord, there are contradictions, and yet we're trying to talk about something as a whole by sort of leaving those things out, right? And life is complex, and when you bring those things in, it raises the complexity. Even in law, how do you then distinguish between the so-called deserving and undeserving poor, right? In other words, that morality is then put onto the person, saying that you're in that state because you didn't do X, Y, and Z, you were not responsible, etc., without then talking about the structural inequalities within which that person is located.
Yeah, this is what we believe actually in a closer look. When I invited us to actually learn the Islamic studies, go and engage with the Quran, go and study it and so on. This is where we really need to make sure that we base our beliefs not on popular understanding. There's 2 billion Muslims in the world today, right? Who says that their understanding is the right understanding as we should be having? So we need to be adopting what we believe to be the moral stance, right? It is difficult, right? The devil is in the details. And when you want to start addressing these challenging points, only then will you actually have a certain positive result in terms of...
Sure, but my question is the idea of morality itself is not a singular one.
True.
Yeah.
And it's not constant.
It's not constant.
It's not constant. And humans have different understandings of it. But this is.
So it requires, the second question, the first question is about moral practices. And therefore, when you have difference, let's assume there are going to be differences. How do we reconcile our differences is the more challenging question. where we can agree to disagree, for example, or we can say that there is space for these different interpretations. Yeah. So it just, my kind of thinking is kind of also colored by Hindu fundamentalism. One way of thinking that everybody in India is Hindu. The Muslims were Hindus before they got converted. They have to get reconverted. That kind of idea.
It can be an inherently human thing, actually. We have a human tendency to kind of reduce, or maybe let's say reduce the others to one kind of simple box and assume that we are right and so on. And this is where I'm saying, if we really look closer to the Quran and its principles, actually, there are so many things that tell you how you approach dialogue, right? But you need someone to actually extract them.
Yeah, but that's, again, the readings are interpretations, right?
Pardon?
The readings are interpretations.
Yeah, that's the thing.
As you said, translation is an interpretation.
Yes.
It's not the reading itself becomes an interpretation.
There's something, some say that God, in our belief, there is a purpose that actually the Quran is made in this way, that different people interpret it differently. And in the Quran, Allah says, He would have made you all one nation. But He didn't. So difference could be part and parcel of the design of this world. Okay. Any point would like to add? You would like to add? Sorry, was anything there missed? Are you comfortable with that? Are you happy with that? Okay, let's go to online and let's take 2 minutes. People on Zoom, anyone would like to speak up on behalf of the group to share with us your findings?
Of course, yes. So on Zoom, we did a kind of whiteboard thing as well, albeit virtual. Inshallah, let me try share my screen if that works.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Can you see this? Should be able to. Yes?
It's loading, I think.
Okay.
Button slide screen sharing. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we wrote down the question and then a variety of people answered. So let's go with Mehdi first. So Mehdi does medicine. I've seen God throughout our work. So he answered, how do we see God in our works I study? First, he answered it. I've seen God throughout our work, throughout work with patience and recognize God's design. Another bullet point was seeing tests and suffering as a part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan and wisdom. Number 2 is next to, I assume, answering the next question. How do we see our work serving humanity in the Muslim community? Leading by example and showing how compassion and mercy are the bedrock of Islam. Then he added some extra points regarding to that, like 2B, safeguarding and advocating for individuals who are in positions of vulnerability. And 2C, healing and optimizing, sorry, my reading isn't great. Optimizing, I think it says, healing and optimize people, I guess, regardless of faith. We can go through the rest of them, unless you want to discuss a particular point. Yeah? Okay. So then, Melika said that she does anthropology, and a lot of the content is about humanity and how people have different social norms within their culture. So no one's culture is defined by their religion, moral and social. One's culture is defined by their religion, moral and social values. So we can see God in the humanity part and treating everyone fairly, regardless of culture or faith. Then I kind of answered as well. So I do economic history. A large part of my degree is economic history. So a lot of time people, when they hear so for the first one, how do we see God in our work and study? A lot of people when they hear economic history, they think it's or economics in general. They think it's about how do you make the most money? How do we make the economy make the most money? But when you do study it, you find out a lot of the things that better economies and make us all better off can be quite simple human principles, especially if you look into institutional arguments of development, accountability, trust, openness with institutions and within society. Institutions like an open government, clear financial reporting, everyone having the right to say their mind are things that are very critical to development that we've seen in the past 100, 200 years and are kind of the core principles of a lot of modern development theories, which very much align with Islamic principles that we can see and moral principles. And then the second question, how do we see our work serving humanity in the Muslim community? So for, again, relating it to economic history, making the theory that we talked about just earlier, pragmatic is seeing how we hold a lot of those institutions or people to account through publicizing these theories and research and kind of saying, these people are not doing this, this, and this. And, maybe it's not making us richer, but it's also just not making us better people. So kind of applying an Islamic, kind of merging the Islamic and empirical lens. Okay, we're not richer. Okay, we're not better off, but we could all be just better people and thus also be better off. So it kind of becomes a positive cycle when you think about it in both terms. Those are our thoughts.
Thanks. Yeah, so it's really improving that dimension in us, the essential dimension that makes us human, right? Rather than the accidental stuff. One thing that I actually want to pick up on was mentioned here about compassion, and there are certain human tendencies that we have, the good ones, right? My brother here mentioned, for example, the law that it is from God. Sometimes we believe or we think of God as there's God, there is us, God gives us. And so when the scientists come and say, well, no, there is something that is within you actually, those people think that, oh, they're talking about something else other than God. Although God in the Quran tells and says, well, it's closer to you than your own jugular vein. And we are there, wherever you are, wherever you look, God is there, right? So this is something also to ponder about, to think about, and that is the traces of God are there within us in the way that we behave, in the way that we think. We think we want, for example, to build, to grow, compassion, mercy, right? These are things that God put in everyone, not just a Muslim or a believer, non-believers as well. This is a sign from God. This is a mercy from God that is manifested in the creation, actually, that they also show mercy and they reflect the mercy of God, whether they're a believer or not, whether they believe in God or not. This is part of the mercy of God, bestows upon even those who not just don't believe in Him, but actually reject Him. Okay. Very good. That was really helpful for me as well, to be honest with you. I cheat sometimes. I really would like to learn, but this is the best way that I can frame it so that I learn from you. So thank you so much for the time and for sharing. I'll go through the next parts a bit quicker, just in the interest of time. Because actually I realised that I think the bus I need to take is at 8:30, something like that, to Houston. So I have to wrap this up. The next part, as I said, is going to be about spirituality and morality. What do I mean? The life that we're living in the modern world, it has become so material, so materialistic. It's like we're running on the treadmill all the time. It's like our brains have been wired in such a way to think that, cause and effect, to think in a very material way. If this happens, this will certainly happen, and that is it. That's a law, right? The laws of cause and effect. That's right. God created this world in such a way. Things happen in cause and effect way. But actually, is this healthy? Is this the right way that our belief teaches us about our view towards the world? Is it really a material law, or like a world of material law? There's nothing else. Interestingly, God in the Quran talks about the Jewish community. As you know, the Quran, when it was revealed, at some point in time, there was interaction with the Christian community and Jewish community mainly, and the pagan community. And so the Quran criticizes one belief, one thing that the Jewish community used to say, and that is what some among the Jews said: God is tight-fisted. God is chained. God's hands are chained. Meaning, right, metaphorically, meaning that God created the world and He left it to run, right, to run with cause and effect, and that's it. So there's nothing else beyond it. There's no spiritual world behind it. God says no. Rather, He is open-handed, giving freely as He pleases. That metaphorical speech as well. But no, God is there. God is bestowing. So one thing that we need to keep remembering, especially us who study empirical sciences, human sciences, right? We meet things that we feel that are laws, and they are. But we need to make sure that in our lives we don't fall into that trap to the extent that we don't see any effect of spirituality. That is wrong. We need to see and remember that dua, supplicating to God, conversing with God, connecting with God, is effective. Dua is effective. Dua is part, supplicating to God is part of the conditions required for your success. And if you don't satisfy that part and then you have achieved the conclusion, it is of the mercy of God. It is of His mercy, not that you merited it. Not that you ticked the box. It is part of the box. And God responds. Worship, ibadah, is effective in our lives. Sometimes we feel, oh, so what if I pray for the oppressed people in the world? For those who are suffering, those who are starving. So what? They're still starving. I'm far away from them. I can't do anything. Well, no, your prayers can do something. This is what we're taught. There is a spiritual world that gets so deprioritized and even stashed, and even swept under the carpet, and we forget that it exists.
That is actually the main part of our beliefs. The Quran starts with, in the beginning, it says, ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب. This book is a guidance to those who are pious, who are wary, and who believe in the unseen, believe in the spiritual one. We need to remember that, yes, Salatul Layl, for example, is effective. Praying at night to God is effective, yes. Traditions tell us that actually, if you have this, if you do this, God will actually bestow upon you the rizq, the sustenance of the material and of the spiritual. Even knowledge. We seek knowledge, we try hard, we learn hard, right? We work hard to learn. But some things that you do in the spiritual world, they translate actually in your life and you will see it. Being kind to your parents, it is something that has also spiritual effects which will elevate the quality of your own life. We need to remember these because often we forget that. I've studied engineering and all I see and know is, okay, these are the laws that govern the systems. When I get fed these often and often and often, and I actually, I hardly remember God. One of the things that we feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually wise to call us to pray every day 5 times is this, because if we don't, something else will occupy our minds. Salah itself is an educational program. Every time you take a pause, you take a break from this treadmill, you sit with yourself, you remind yourself about this worldview, because what you recite really is an education for your own self about what really matters in this world. What do I really believe about this world? And you speak to God. You glorify God 5 times a day, yes. Because if we don't, we'll sway. Because this is us, humans are like that. They have a dimension in them that takes them to evil if they don't keep watching themselves. So yes, we need to remember that tawassul is effective. We need to remember that taqwa, piety, God consciousness is effective in terms of knowledge, seeking knowledge. Allah in the Quran says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمْكُمُ اللَّهِ, and be mindful of God, and God will teach you. Our scholars say that there is a duality, there is a connection between you being a God, leading a God-centric life, a pious life, a pure life, and that God will teach you things. The heart of the pious person, the heart of the believer, the heart of the person who's spiritual or spiritually connected with God becomes a mirror that reflects the realities of this world, becomes a mirror that understands the kingdoms of the heavens and the earth, how everything works. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to you. A narration from our 6th Imam as-Sadiq sallallahu alayhi wa said, had it not been that the devils are kind of roaming around the hearts of people, taking us away, not deflecting our attention to sinning, to evil. Had it not been for that, humans would have seen malakut as-samawati wal-ard. People would have seen the realities of the heavens and the earth. You would have seen things that you feel that they're not there. As Allah describes in the Quran, for example, He says, those who eat with the money of the orphans, so immorality, a moral economy. They are eating fire in their stomachs. God is saying they're eating fire in their stomachs, describing it as fire. But we don't feel it. Those people who eat with the immoral or immorally acquired money, they don't feel it. God is saying they're eating fire. There is a reality there. If they see the fire, they wouldn't have done it. They're oblivious because they're far away from God. They're far away from that truth. And so we need to remember also that attachment to this world, attachment to the material dimension of this world, devoid of spirituality, devoid of God, is also bad. A narration would say from the Holy Messenger of God, from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would say, whenever a servant, an individual, increases in knowledge, and as a result increases in desiring this world, desiring the material attachments, it means what? This person is only becoming more distant from God. So these spiritual laws, we need to remember them as well, on top of the laws that we're studying in our classrooms. The second point I want to make here is a moral one. The moral character, what we call the akhlaq, that is expected from you because you call yourselves Muslim. The moral standard that you should show should not be comparable or should not be equal to the moral standard of anyone else. It should be even higher and always higher. Why? Because when you say I'm Muslim,
It means that you're presenting yourself as a representative of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People look at you, if you present yourself as a Muslim, obviously, especially our dear sisters, because this is an obvious part of their identity in terms of hijab and modest wear. It means people look at you as a Muhammadi, as a representative of Muhammad. And so you need to meet that standard to the best of your ability. You're a representative of the Book of God, you're a representative of the Holy Messenger of God, Ahlul Bayt. And that is not something to be taken lightly. God says in the Quran about the ladies, the wives, the ladies of the Prophet, our Prophet. He would speak to them, O wives of the Prophet, if any of you were to commit a blatant misconduct, the punishment would be doubled for her. Why is that? Because she's the wife of the Prophet. What she represents is not something ordinary, and therefore they should hold themselves to a higher standard. A narration from our sixth Imam also, Imam Sadiq, talks to one of his companions, and he would say, the goodness coming from anyone is good, but from you it is better. Why? Because of your close position to us. So the Imam is the one, in our belief, who takes the position of the Prophet after the Prophet's departure of this world. The Imam is the person who teaches this faith and this religion, who teaches us these teachings, who explains to us the Book of God, the morality, the moral system we believe in, and so on. He would say, when you actually affiliate with us, Islam, then the goodness that comes from you is doubled. Because you're representing us, whether you mean it or not. Your outlook matters. He would continue, he would say, and evil coming from anyone is evil. But coming from you is more evil. Why? Because of your belonging to us, because of your affiliating with us. So every step that we do, everything that we say has an effect, and it needs to be a reflection of our morality and the morality of our faith, the morality of our leaders. And so at least we should learn about them from the right sources. We should learn about them from the right sources. It's not sufficient to say, well, the Muslims, as I said a minute ago, the Muslims believe this, and therefore I should believe in it. Right? No, we should take the knowledge from the right sources, from the origin. Not just because my forefathers taught me this faith, I'm following it. Then how are you different from anyone else? How is anyone else different from you? Right? What makes everyone and anyone different is really they're seeking to the truth. They're seeking for the truth. And this is what God sees, whether you're a Muslim or not. You're not Muslim, but you're actually genuinely seeking the truth. That's what God wants. Some people may not find the truth and reach it, but actually they tried. You have stories in our Muslim traditions. Salman Faris. He was Zoroastrian first, then he became Christian, then later found the Prophet, and then he became Muslim. Imagine he didn't find the Prophet, he didn't become Muslim. So what? Would God dismiss all his methods? Right? So we need to learn about our faith from the right sources. Some people, maybe read one hadith, one narration from the Messenger of God, from the Imams, from the right sources. Okay, every day, open one of the books. Now, alhamdulillah, online internet is good. It's easy in our hands. Learn a hadith every day. And see how you start practicing your faith from your own knowledge, your own first-hand learning, instead of inheriting second-hand stuff. I'll mention here one narration, inshallah, and I'll finish this part, where our Imam says about the level of morality in terms of seeking knowledge. He would say, whoever learns knowledge to boast, to show off before scholars or before knowledgeable people, to show that I'm knowledgeable, spiritual and moral. Remember, whoever learns knowledge to boast before scholars or to argue with fools. Sometimes you see people, speaker's corner, I don't know where, right? You just go there to what? To argue with people who are not knowledgeable, so that they win over them, so that they feel, yeah, I won, I scored a point against these people. I feel we're stronger, we're better, we're saved, everyone else is not. Club mentality. That's so evil, actually. Remember when I said sometimes you think you're doing well, you think you're serving God, but actually you're defying God. You're working against God. With the way that you're presenting your faith, you're repelling people from faith. Whoever learns knowledge to boast before scholars, or argue with fools, or attract people's attention. Just see me, I have this degree from that uni. If you're like that, then prepare for your seat in the hellfire. Meaning spiritual damnation. Meaning in this world, you may be successful, you may, get positions in different institutions, you may be a leader and so on, fine. All the best, good luck. But in terms of real essence, in terms of real spirituality, in terms of what really matters, you're in loss. This is where I'll stop now. Any quick questions? So I was thinking basically to do now another exercise of splitting into groups. I'll tell you what my plan was. Okay, and you tell me if it makes sense. Discussing the following scenarios. When you at uni or at school, you compete with other people for grades, for higher marks, for the highest marks, okay? How is this assessed morally? How would you assess it? Is this in line with these teachings? Moral mindset in terms of learning and seeking knowledge, or is it not? It could be, or it could be not. How would you approach it? The other one is inter-religious debates, Sunni Shia, Muslim, non-Muslim, at uni. How would you approach it as a spiritual, moral person, moral learner? How would you do it? How would you come across? What would you do? Speaker corner style? Speaker's corner. And the third point is being a Muslim representative in a classroom or in a society. How would you show up? What would you do? How would that reflect your iman or your faith? Yeah. So what should we do? Should we split into 3 groups and each group discussing one of these points? Then we reconvene. So we take 5 minutes. We'll give one of these challenges to each group, and then we'll reconvene in 5 minutes, inshallah, and then we'll wrap. Does that make sense? I didn't give you an option there. I'm really sorry. I hope it makes sense. Please say yes. Yeah? Ya Rabbi. Okay, good. Let's wake up. Okay, let's start with people online. So I hope you also are awake. Good that we can't hear your snoring. Can you please discuss the first point, which is competing for grades or marks in the class? How would you approach it as a moral, spiritual person? Would you join here or there? Would you join there? Inter-religious debates. Sunni Shia debates. Okay, let's say Sunni Shia, right? How would you handle it? Because you are someone who affiliates with the school of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia school. Okay, how would you approach this? Please take 5 minutes discussing how you approach it as a person who's spiritually and morally in line with the will of God. Being a Muslim representative in a classroom or a society. Okay, what I mean is maybe someone who's serving in the ABSoc committee. Okay, how would the character of or the moral character that Ahlul Bayt wants us to have, how would that really reflect in the way you work in your society? Okay, a bit abstract maybe, but let's see.
Excuse me, Sheikh.
Yes.
We have one question from online. If you're able
Please.
to now, or
Yes.
you take it later. Okay, please go on. Yours the question.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Can you hear me?
Salam wa rahmatullah. Yes.
My name's Aisha, and I had a quick question. So, obviously, we're talking in the context of having debates, etc.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that it's because a lot of the time the niyyah behind it is like riyah, so wanting maybe validation from other people, show off. So, but my question was generally like, for example, personally, I used to be Sunni. Just as an example, and I found it quite helpful to me to engage in debate. Even initially, getting into Islam, I found it very, very beneficial to do. I'd use the term debate very loosely, but when I have maybe queries or when I find something inconsistent, it's quite helpful to me to then go and follow that up with somebody, even if it is within the style of a debate. Just because I think generally Islam, alhamdulillah, is a very morally tight religion. I don't think it has any contradictions, and the only way you can understand that is to debate through it. So I think number one, how would you approach that style of debate, yani, or trying to learn when trying to seek ilm? And then also on the other hand, how do we renew our niyyah once, sometimes ultimately we're fallible, we're human, so we can get to the stage where it's no longer about trying to seek knowledge for the sake of Allah, and rather it's about maybe trying to one up or inflate our own egos. So sorry, very long-winded, but those were my two questions.
Very well put. No, God bless you. Very, very well put. Very good questions. I'll try to answer briefly. Forgive me if I don't go to details much, right? The first point is learning through debates is problematic, actually, because what you would be influenced by is, those, I'm not saying, I don't want to disqualify debating. Debating has its people. That's really my point. My point is, when you are someone who comes to debate, as you said actually in the last comments, visit your intention. Why are you doing it? Some scholars, they would say, there is one thing that they promised they will never do when they started their religious studies, and that is what? One person said, I will never go and debate or argue. I will never argue. Meaning what? Arguing for the sake of arguing, where there's no, where there's no result coming out. Right? I will never do that, I said. Why? Because actually our traditions teach us that it is terrible to, it's very bad to actually do that. When you just argue for the sake of argument. No, there has to be a constructive thing coming out from it. Otherwise, leave it, even if you are right. So basically, for someone who is learning the deen, they have to learn in a structured way, Aisha. Otherwise, I think they would be biased by factors that may not be part of what you're learning. So this is something that you need to understand. Yes, debate, obviously, it teaches you lots of stuff. It teaches you, but you have to be equipped with a few tools first. Maybe you were equipped, maybe some people are. But just so that you don't go ending up in another debate, right? Maybe debating against what you currently believe, and then you move to that belief because the debate appeared to be stronger. You see what I mean? So I'm trying to say that it is about the flesh of what is being discussed, which I think can be learned through systematic learning. So I would recommend basically structured learning, a seminary studies, religious circles, a certain structured plan of learning. Debates as a side, yes, it helps you understand what other people present, and therefore you understand what your arguments or counter arguments are. The second point, you actually said it, Aisha, and that is you need to keep your intentions in check, because once you stop that, you wander off. Our teachings, the Holy Messenger of God told us and taught us that every night you should be trying to revisit what you've done through the day, what you've intended even. What were your intentions? Why did you do things? What did you do? Good, thank God, excellent. Do it again next time. Bad, ask Allah to forgive you, and so on. This has to be part of our daily program, because otherwise we will just, we'll sway away. I hope I addressed it, although I actually took long. I'm really sorry.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much. Okay, doc. So we know our questions. I think you probably are done by now. Competing for marks, Sunni Shia debate, how you approach it, and being a Muslim representative in a classroom or society.
Just together again.
5 minutes, please discuss together amongst each other. In 5 minutes, reconvene, and take 5 minutes to share.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We're gonna, as we did before, go on the whiteboard. If you have any struggle accessing it, just let me know. Should be loading up now. Okay, cool. Should be able to join it now. So you can, it's best to normally type if you want to draw. So the question we're doing is, just to get the exact wording, competing for grades or marks, how would you approach it as a moral and spiritual lesson? Very relevant question, as you can imagine, all of us in university. So you guys can do the same thing as we did before. We can just type it out, or we can kind of debate it and discuss it, whatever you feel like. So yeah, if you guys wanna, okay, if you just wanna type it, I guess we can just list all of our perspectives. So I guess my perspective would be competing for grades and marks, LG approaches, spiritual person. So I guess there's a couple perspectives there. One is like justice. So we believe in God's divine justice. So maybe you could apply that quite simplistically in saying everyone gets what they deserve. Or what effort they put in, along with whatever they put in, I guess, as well. But you could also say that grades and marks are not everything. Should be part of a balanced life, and you're rewarded for it. Do you agree with that? I think I don't know if I agree with it fully, but it makes a lot of sense.
Assalamu alaikum. I just thought it'd be beneficial maybe to speak as well. So for me personally, I feel like if I know that it's going to be a source of fitna to me to compare with my peers, then I'll just actively try and prevent myself from doing this. So kind of just stick to my own work, stick to my own revision, not really ask about how anyone else's is going. To some this can appear to be quite over the top, but I think it just depends on boundaries and then also renewing your niyyah. So, having a look into the future, trying to understand why the exams might be important or the grades are important, and if there's a further benefit from it, that of course is also for the sake of Allah, then
For 1 minute.
1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute, please, for people online.
Thank you. Sorry, I should go on.
no, I was done. I was done.
Yeah, I think you made an important point there. I think something we can add just generally is like the importance of the result is often important to put in perspective of, I guess it links into what we were talking about earlier about merging Islamic studies and empirical studies. So it's kind of having again that balanced perspective of saying, for example, yeah, I want to do great in this field or this university or this even job to do this and that and achieve this, but why am I doing that? Does it help the world? And does it help the world because I want to help the world? Or does it help the world? Or am I just doing it for such and such? And or am I not doing this as a servant of the community and as a servant of God? Yeah, very important point. But then I think something interesting about that is also like it can be used to like justify neglecting other aspects. Humans are quite smart creatures, and we can nearly justify anything, especially when you say have more knowledge of religion. It's very easy to justify such and such without really paying much attention. So, for example, you might justify not going to the mosque or even maybe skipping wajib outs because you're very insecure about, say, where you will land up in university or job, and that kind of links into tawakkul and the test and that.
I think that's a very good point about insecurity. I think that I've written it down as well. Often our bad grades and results are just an extension of individual insecurity, low self-worth, or maybe a bad relationship with our parents where we feel like we're under quite a lot of pressure. So I think
Beautiful,
resolving that
mashallah.
will help.
Really sorry, I didn't want to interrupt because I can see really nice contributions.
No worries.
So let me start with our group online on Zoom. Would anyone like to share with us, or is it just we can read?
I just wanted to ask, sorry, can you read what we've put on the whiteboard or how?
Yeah, we can see them on the screen.
Okay,
Nice
great.
and clear.
So I guess Aisha, you want to go or anyone else?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't mind, or they can be read, whatever's easier.
Go
go for it, please. Yes.
I put for myself personally, I find it quite beneficial to not actively compare myself to my peers, or even, ask how your revision's going, because I realize that I'd be saying it with an ulterior motive. So again, off the back of that, renewing my intention and centering my revision, on my work around the focus of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and my akhirah, how it's benefiting that. I also think it's very important and often overlooked to understand the root of why we're getting so distressed over grades or marks. Often this is due to low self-worth or insecurities in our lives. So it can be with ourselves, with our parents, our relationship with Allah. So we should, I think, seek to resolve these issues before our issues, with our grades, etc., are also fixed.
Very nice. Well said. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share?
I'll go for it if anyone else doesn't want to share. I mean, you can read the rest of them. So my one was the top one. I guess we kind of started, I guess what came to mind first is justice. People think that, tests are, they're meant to be a just way of saying what everyone deserves or even demarking kind of their intelligence or capacity in a subject. So we kind of thought about relating it to God's justice. Does everyone get what they deserve? And even though grades and marks not everything, we kind of hit on a point that they should be part of a balanced life, and you're kind of rewarded for your intention rather than the result in a religious sense. But then, like Aisha pointed out, we kind of pointed out how it can be very difficult as someone who maybe be a high achiever or just wanting to do really well in an exam. It can be very easy to justify that as okay. You should always obviously have the context of, you're doing this exam to do this and this for religion or to become a better person or to better your community. But oftentimes when it becomes an obsessive focus, you can use that to justify neglecting other acts. Maybe going to the mosque or reciting du'as because you're too busy. You think, you're too busy for this and it can become obsessive and excessive. And even to the extent, you can see people skipping like wajib acts. So I think it's very important and probably the hardest test once you've kind of started studying and you're someone who's a high achiever, is kind of having that tawakkul and being able to live quite a balanced life and balancing all these different aspects of studying.
Very nice. Very well said. Very well said. Thank you. Anything else on this side?
I think everyone else just typed it. I mean, you can see them here. We can read them.
One thing here is, it's really very important that obviously competition is good when it is done well, right? We need to compete who is a better person or a greater person, right? It's great to compete in that. Please do compete in that, right? Meaning that you don't compare yourself necessarily to other people, looking down at other people. But in terms of goodness, for example, yes, please do compete in goodness. Please do compete in who does more, right? Who does more well to, or who serves people more. That's fine, right? Obviously, as long as the first aim or the main aim in your mind is God and not your own ego, your own self. But the one thing that I find really important is, don't actively compare yourself to your peers. Maybe the best way is to compare yourself to your own self. Because, the marking system and the grading system may not be there. It is accepted as, the equal way that we measure people. But it's not really an accurate measurement of who the person really is. Okay?
I can share some experience, from my side. I had this pressure at uni to get grades, get high grades. Why? Because I had a scholarship, and I needed that scholarship to continue. Okay, but then when I graduated and I went to the industry, realized, oh my God, uni didn't teach me things. I got high grades, high marks. I'm terrible at other things. So this is something to understand and remember. Yes, quick one.
But you can't take the chance. That's the problem. I hate grading here. And I've written lots of pieces about why we grade. We grade to sort people out. And people like to be graded to sort themselves out.
It's better probably the best system we have, isn't it?
And I think I would just come back on your point about competition. I think we should forget the idea of competition. We should go the route of collaboration. I think collaboration will get rid of grades. Collaboration in the workplace will get rid of who is pegged higher than the other. And when we say that somebody is doing more good and somebody is doing less good, we have to ask, what is stopping that somebody who's doing less good from doing more good? They might have some very ill parents. They may not be able to do more good, right? So we make these kind of assumptions and judgments, I think, which is problematic in itself, right? So I'm trying to say, how can education be more collaborative rather than competitive? And it's a kind of, as you say,
it's a complete mindset shift, isn't it? In terms of absolutely. I think God bless you. Yeah, and I think that's it also should stem from our concern for others. We have Imam Sadiq, for example, he said, when you see faith is levels, iman is levels, and people ascend these levels like a ladder, like you would ascend a ladder. Don't expect people to be at the same high level of spirituality or closeness to God or religiousness and so on. And he would say, don't expect from people who may be lower than you in your spirituality to display behaviors like yours. Don't expect from people what you expect from, let's say, others. And if you see someone who's inferior to you in their level, take them up to you gently. So that's a beautiful. Thank you so much for actually saying this. I stand corrected. God bless you. Thank you.
And I think, if I don't mind me saying, it links back to the idea of prayer. If the prayer is for one's own redemption and one's own self, right, whether it's material or the power of the prayer and so on and so forth, rather than thinking about the collective, right? And the same thing we find now in terms of self-help, right? Any university, it's got these 15 links that you can go to if you're suffering from depression and anxiety. It's never about collective. It's almost as if it is your problem. Here is the solution. And if you carry on saying, I'm depressed, you say, you didn't take that link. That's your problem. You're lazy. Okay. You see how the whole thing, even meditation, mindfulness, everything is to do with individual. It's not about the system. Okay. Grow a thick skin. It's not about the system being unfair. It's about you not coping with the system. And I think we have to think through those mechanisms that govern social life. And from a politics perspective or from a law perspective, where is the justice today in international humanitarian law? Where is the justice?
Justice is a very abstract concept, especially against international humanitarian law, and it really doesn't. I guess the more you study law, the more you realize that justice has never really been an ideal of humanity, but more so just a concept in which people throw about in order to justify their own ends of means. And so, especially when you look at international humanitarian law, it really isn't a concept of justice. It's more people will throw that word around to just try further their own means, but justice never really has existed within.
But if there isn't a concept of justice in international humanitarian law, I accept your larger premise, then that should apply to everybody.
Yeah.
The fact that it's justice for some people and not for others is the problem with the international humanitarian law.
Well, we're all equal, but some people are more equal than others, isn't it?
That is,
Sandy, very good. Thank you. Let me just, I'll have to actually start sprinting at 8:25. So sorry. Let me give you the chance to share your thoughts. What was it? Was it the debate, Sunni Shia debate, or how would you approach it?
You were saying, well, the main thing, I guess, we started on is seeing their intention. You answered a lot of it in the answer that you were asking her, but we were saying if you see the person is coming at you and they're already showing signs of ignorance, I wouldn't go ahead. Personally, I wouldn't go ahead and do anything about that. If you see
Because you wouldn't want to kind of take advantage of their ignorance. Is that why, or?
I wouldn't.
Or is it?
I think, yeah, I guess.
Probably not ready.
Yeah, I don't think even if you gave them the truth, you gave them everything, they still wouldn't do anything about that. I think they're so stuck. They would be so stuck in their ignorance, they wouldn't try to do anything further. If that makes sense.
Yeah, this is one of the things that people mean well generally, right? People mean well, and people really want the truth. And this is where we look at the non-Shia Muslims, whether they're Sunni or others, we know that they mean well. We know that this is what they know. We know that they want the truth. They're seekers of the truth like everyone else. They love our prophet. They love our faith, right? This is what they were taught. So you need to acknowledge this, acknowledge their intention. That's amazing. If everyone does that in the world, honestly, we'd be in a much better place. They actually put yourself in the other person's shoes and try address it from there. This is where it's so risky sometimes, the debate culture. And again, debate, it has its room. It has to be a controlled place, people having rules and regulations. And it's not just, people feeling that I know a few things, I watched a couple of YouTube videos, now I'm ready to debate and, debunk and smash the other person. No, it has its rules. And some of the rules is actually to be moral about it, is actually to make sure that what you're talking, it really makes sense. Otherwise, if it's because of emotions, these emotions will fade away next hour. What did you do then? Sorry, I interrupted. I shouldn't be talking.
No, that's it. That was what we were saying. The main thing is your intention. If you see the other person is ignorant, you wouldn't go ahead with it. If you see the person is trying to develop their knowledge, learn more, even convert, become Shia, then go ahead and do the most that you can.
Teach,
what you think that you know.
Yeah, that's one thing that I would also say is that let's not our concern be how do we convert people, right? What do we say to convert people? First, it's in the hands of God. He guides and He misguides, okay? Second, our concern should be how we guide our own selves and we understand our own selves. And third, really the conduct. When you come across as you want to go and convert people, guess what? Will people come to you? If someone comes to me with the intention that I want to debate with you so that you convert to whatever religion, right? To be honest, I wouldn't be interested. I'm not interested. Are you interested in having a conversation whereby we explore what good you have to offer, what good I have to offer? We learn from each other. We learn from each other's mistakes. Excellent. I'm up for it. Otherwise, I'm not interested. So don't put yourself in a position where oh my God, 5 minutes. You made your decision already. Brothers.
So very much so building off they were speaking of right now is akhlaq, right? So being a good Muslim representative in our classroom and in our friend circles and whatnot in university in general is not to do with what you're saying, because actions speak louder than words. It's how you act, how you govern yourself, right? Like what you're saying. And tying it back to that debate point, somebody comes at you very provocatively and aggressively, and he's like, you're wrong in this and this and this. But it doesn't matter if it's a Shia going up to a Sunni guy or vice versa, right? Instantly, it's a turnoff, and it just shows that you don't have good akhlaq. You don't have good, character traits and morals and virtues and regard for others and their beliefs, which is not what we're taught at all in the school that made the Islam. So that's the main thing, is our akhlaq and everything, not just with dialogue and conversing with people, but how we walk, to how we sit, to how we look at things, our gaze, to what we listen to, everything. It's our akhlaq in all matters of life, because people notice those things. Either they're paying attention or they're subconsciously they'll pick up on it. So I feel like that was the main and most important thing, is that. Yeah.
Very, very, you put it very eloquently. God bless you. Very good. Very good. Any comments? Anything that Muhammad missed? Are we all happy? Inshallah. Okay. I'll go through I'm not going to do the lecture again, but the last point I really wanted to make was, just to keep my promise, is just to remind ourselves how we can provide alternatives to the community, to humanity. Look, in the Quran, Allah said, for example, to Adam and his spouse, right? There's this tree, don't approach it. Everything else, feel free, right? So the restriction is really small. This is how life goes. You can't have life where you say, this is no, haram, 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 right? If you are a person or a young person in a community or in a society where so much is impermissible, okay? Life can't move naturally. And so when so many things around you may be immoral, financial system on top of them, right? Political system, social norms, we need to start thinking about alternatives. Maybe not now, but in the future. Something that I really urge myself and yourselves to think about this in your own fields. As you study, as you graduate, as you grow, as you lead, think about this, how we can collaborate so that we work on providing alternatives for the Muslim community. Alternatives are moral, right? How can we have, let's say, entertainment alternatives for the youth or the children in a society where maybe they would not reflect the moral principles that we live by? How can we provide, how can we collaborate to have a collaborative or say moral financial system, moral political systems, moral institutions? This was really my last closing point. I wanted to invite us to think and take maybe 10 minutes to think. Obviously, unfortunately, I'll have to run now. It was really lovely seeing you. I would have really stayed if I had driven, but unfortunately, I'm taking the train. Because usually I like, the best part is the end, actually, when I'm able to talk and discuss. But please do forgive me. I really hope that I see you inshallah in another time. This was really fun and enjoyable for me, and I learned from all of you. Thank you very much for those who joined us online. Allah bless you all, inshallah, and see you later.
Disagreements. Just a quick word before we all start heading off. I'd like to thank all of you for coming here today. And thank you for Sheikh and Sunil for coming here with us today. We are continuing this series at King's. I'm not sure of the date on the top of my head, but we've got a process to release out. And just another salawat to end the session. Thank you all so much for coming.